Hey everyone, Carrie Beck here with Homeschool Coffee Break, where we help you gain confidence, stop the overwhelm, so you can actually take a coffee break in your homeschool. I am so excited about today. I always say that, but I'm sorry, but most of the topics we cover are things I am truly excited about and would love to just share a little bit more information so that you can avoid the mistakes I made. And I made plenty of mistakes on this topic. Today, we are talking about how your future leaders, your leaders in training, need a character foundation, a godly biblical character foundation. Before we dive into that, wherever you are listening to this, please find the little subscribe button and subscribe to this so we can get this information out to more and more people. Just so, again, you can avoid these, you homeschool Christian moms, you can avoid the mistakes that I've made and other seasoned homeschoolers have made as well. I don't know about you, but when our kids were young, raising our kids with godly character was a very top priority. But being consistent in my parenting, in my child training was extremely difficult. Is consistency a problem for you? When I talk to homeschool moms, most of them say yes. I mean, we know consistency and following God's word is key to raising our children. And I wanted to raise my kids to lead instead of just follow. We know consistency in character building will prepare your kids to be adults who can actually think of others first instead of themselves. They will serve others. We know too that if you use the Bible as a basis for your character training, it will last a lifetime. So let's talk about two or three things that I think you could do to be a little bit more consistent. To begin with, I think it's very important that you distinguish between God's rules and family rules. For us, this really came into play a lot when our kids were teenagers. I think character building starts when they are born, toddlers, preschoolers, but when they're teens, we are still working on character building. And it's really important that they understand God's rules come from God's word, the Bible. Family rules come from mom and dad saying, we think this is a good way to implement God's rules. For instance, coming home at a set time, 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock or 10 o'clock or whatever time, is a family rule. It is based in the idea, as Steve says, nothing good happens after midnight. Let's be really honest. So that's sort of like protecting our kids from whatever happens after a late time in the evening. So that is a family rule. God's rule is that he wants us to obey him, to not lie, to be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another. Those are God's rules, to make allowances when others offend you because you need to forgive because God has forgiven you. Those, we've talked about those in other sessions as well, but those are God's rules. Another family rule we had, super simple and probably not that important, is I wanted my kids to make their bed every morning or take their dishes back to the table. I mean, from the table to the kitchen. Those were house rules. You have house rules and God rules. If you mix them all together, you're going to have children that rebel against everything because they don't know the difference. They don't know how to take God's rules and apply them and up with their own guidelines for their own life. Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God. This is the will of God. That is God's rules. Rejoice, pray, and give thanks. Those are God's rules. How we do that may look different from my family to your family. So just make sure that you are distinguishing between God's rules and family rules. The other thing I think is so important is that we use the Bible to build character. When my kids were young and they were having an argument or they were lying, that wasn't okay. Some of you may be against spanking. We had 2 automatic spankings in our house. Lying, disrespect mom. There was just no question. The rest of it, we dealt with things, but it was like we are not doing these 2 things. But if they were, they were arguing or they weren't obeying or whatever happens to be the thing. Oh yeah, look at that. Sorry about that. Like it's in the way. The phone rings. Okay, so I would choose a verse about that topic. Let's say we were dealing with obedience. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Or go back to the Ten Commandments, and this will you will live a long life. That's the only Ten Commandment that has a promise connected to it. So I would find verses that dealt with that specific problem. And when they had whatever the issue, not obeying or arguing or whatever, we would read that verse and say, God says this. And we move it from my shoulders to God's shoulders. His shoulders can handle them a lot better than me. And so I don't want to give them a bad attitude, but I wanted them to know I follow God, your dad follows God. We are going to follow his rules. And so that's what we did. As my kids got older, I would give them a list of verses about that topic, that sin, that issue. And then they had to go read them. And eventually I might say, you go find the concordance, and I want you to look up 3 verses and then come back and let's talk about what God says about this, about lying, about obedience or not obedience, about forgiveness or unforgiveness. Now, one thing that I wished I had had that I now provide for many moms is our character behavior or character training charts. I thought I would just demonstrate them to you. I know if you're listening, you may not be able to see this, but just sort of imagine a chart that has 6 boxes, and each box is divided into 2 spaces. So if we are here and we've got make peace and argue, those are 2 things. Make peace is a blessing. We're going to find a blessing for them. Arguing is a sin. We're going to have a consequence. For each one of those, I have already written a verse that you can use. So you don't even have to go look up verses. You can sit and talk about that. I think it's really important that we bless our children when they are obeying, when they are following God, when they are living with righteous character. I think it's like 342 negative words a day versus 17 positive words a day a child hears. You need to focus and find the things that your kids are doing correctly and praise them, not empty praise. You don't just praise them for anything, but when they are actually doing it, if they are making peace with their brother or sister, then come here in Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God, and talk about that. Then underneath each one of these is a blank space for you to write whatever the blessing is and the consequence. For arguing, an angry person stirs up conflict, and a hot-tempered person commits many sins. And so you need to write ahead of time. And we've got, this is the one chart I'm showing you, if you can are watching a video, has 6 pairs of blessing consequences. We have 3 charts times 6, that's 18 blessing consequences category: lying or telling the truth, obeying, not obeying, respectful, disrespect. So there's all sorts of different things. If you're unsure about what kind of blessing to offer or what kind of consequence within the ebook, this is all digital. There are ideas that you can use, suggested rewards, suggested consequences as well. So come up with things. The thing I love about this is, number one, it takes you immediately back to Bible. Number two, it's already decided before anything happens, before they do something righteous or whether they sin. We've already decided in our family, here is what happens. Even if you have friends over, you can say, here is what happens in this house. Now, so this is something that I think is really good. I have gotten great feedback. Our moms and dads love it because it's very consistent. It is digital. So the thing is, you can print it out, use it for a year, and then print another one out. Or you can print one out on cardstock, laminate it like I have it, and then all you do is wipe it off, and then start all over again. Whatever is whatever is easiest for you. So that is something that's consistent. Even if you don't get our charts, find whatever you're dealing with and take the positive and the negative, put it on the refrigerator so you can always go back to that as well. Now, I have a few resources. Wherever you're listening to this, there should be something in the description that takes you straight to our character training toolkit that also comes with some audio video trainings as well, some classes. But Depending on when you listen to this, we are recording this in February. At the end of February, we have our Life Skills Leadership Summit, and you can get a free pass. Just look wherever you are listening to this, and you can get a link to the free pass. Why leadership pass when we're talking about character building? That isn't a good question. I think the basis of a good, godly leader who is leading for Jesus Christ, who is not following the crowd, the foundation of everything they do is built on godly character. If I am a mom or dad raising my kids, I need to develop godly character in my kids. I need to ask God, what do you want me to do to raise my kids to have biblical, godly character? That foundation that everything else is built on. If you have godly character, it's not like the sand that gets washed away. It is a firm foundation in God. And so that is why I think it's important. So come, because All Day Tuesday is devoted to parenting and building godly character as well. So get the link wherever you're listening to this, and you can get a brand new free pass and be able to watch all of it. If you are listening to this after the summit, that link will still take you to the recordings, and you can get the recordings as well. So we've got you covered no matter where it is. Most of all, when you're growing your kids in godly character, make sure it is always founded in God's word, and that your kids understand the difference between God's rules and family's rules. And let your kids begin as they grow older to go to the Bible and let them discover for themselves what God has to say about biblical character as well. Hey, thanks for spending time with me. I am Carrie Beck with Homeschool Coffee Break. We will talk to you next time.